Hoyoverse's latest game, Zenless Zone Zero, is finally out, and you know the first thing I had to do was check if there was any food I could recreate. Luckily, Wise and Belle frequent their local noodle shop, and this shop has quite a lot of options on the menu. Today I'll be recreating the very first ramen recipe we unlock, vegetarian ramen. I do want to note that I did not use fully vegetarian ingredients in this recipe because I am using this as a base for all of my future ramen recipes, but I will list vegetarian substitutions as we go, and it will be in the written recipe down below in the description. So please consider subscribing to see more Zenless Zone Zero cooking content, and without further ado, let's begin. The very first thing is the dashi, or Japanese stock, consisting of two main ingredients, kombu, which is dried seaweed, and bonito flakes, which are dried fish shavings. If you want to make a vegetarian dashi, I would replace the bonito with dried shiitake mushrooms. Cut the kombu into smaller pieces if needed to fit into your pot. Fill a pot with water and place the kombu in. Set the stove to medium-low heat and slowly bring the water up to almost a gentle boil. You don't actually want the water to boil, but you'll notice little bubbles forming around the edges. This will take about 10 to 15 minutes depending on the strength of your stove. Remove the kombu and then add the bonito flakes in. Let the water come up to a simmer and allow the stock to simmer for 30 seconds before turning off the heat. Let the bonito flakes steep in the stock for 10 minutes. You know it's done when the flakes sink to the bottom of the pot. If you're doing a vegetarian dashi with the shiitake mushrooms, I would let it simmer for a few minutes and then let it steep for about 10 minutes as well. Strain into a container, and that's all there is to homemade dashi. However, if you don't have the time or you don't want to make dashi, an alternative is instant dashi. Not as good, but you just dissolve the pellets in water and you have dashi in just a few minutes. The next component is tare. Tare is added into ramen bowls as a way of seasoning the broth. It's incredibly high in flavor, umami, and salt. In a saucepan, add sake, dashi, soy sauce, mirin, salt. Bring this to a simmer for 5 minutes and then add bonito flakes. If you want to keep this tare vegetarian, you can just skip this step. Simmer for 30 seconds with the bonito in and then turn off the heat and let it steep for a few minutes before straining. Next, let's look at the toppings. For the mushrooms, remove the stems from the shiitake mushrooms and create an X-shaped incision into them. For the bok choy, remove each stem and give it a quick wash. Now we can finally move to the broth. Heat a pot on medium-high heat and add oil in. Add grated garlic and ginger in and saute for 30 seconds until fragrant. Then add the dashi in. Place the shiitake mushrooms in and let this all simmer for 15 minutes. While the broth is simmering, bring a pot of water to a boil and drop the bok choy in for 1 minute. Quickly dunk the bok choy into a bowl of ice water to prevent further cooking. For the egg, it is just a simple fried egg, so preheat oil on medium-high heat in a pan, gently crack an egg in and cook for 3 to 4 minutes. You can gently spoon hot oil over the parts of the egg whites to help speed up the cooking process if necessary. Back to the broth, give it a taste and add more salt if necessary. Now you can strain this broth to remove the ginger and garlic pieces, but I personally enjoy eating them, so I'm leaving it in. Keep the broth on low heat until ready. For the ramen noodles, I'm just using store-bought ramen noodles and cooking according to the package instructions. I made ramen noodles from scratch once, and I am not doing that again. Okay, everything is cooked, it's time to finally assemble. In a bowl, start with a ladle of the tare, then a few ladles of the broth. Place the ramen noodles in, then a few pieces of the bok choy, then the shiitake mushrooms, then carefully place the fried egg in, and finally a handful of chopped green onions. And that completes the vegetarian ramen from Zenless Zone Zero. Super simple and a perfect starting point for this series. Let me know your thoughts and which ramen you'd like to see next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.